Okay, this is part one of The Knight's Tale from Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. I want you to open up your packet to page 73, where we will begin part one. Now, what you should have in front of you is your copy of The Knight's Tale. You should also have something to write with, a highlighter, as well as your good versus bad fortune notes sheet, the graphic organizer that I created for you. Remember, with Fortune's Wheel, for everything that bad happens, it will inevitably be followed by something good happening. And with that, when something good happens, there will bound to be something bad that follows it up. It's like a wheel. When you're at your high and you have your very good, there's going to be something that's going to bring you down. But you'll only be down for so long. You will then go back up again. So we're going to track The Knight's Tale through the good and bad fortune. So, to set the stage a little bit, The Knight's Tale is a story of two young men who fall in love with the same woman. It is set in mythological Greece. The theme is courtly love. There also is the theme of instability of human life and how human life is very fragile. And then that joy, happiness, and suffering or sadness are very close. They're not very far apart. So with joy comes sadness, with suffering comes happiness. Realize that the characters that we're going to meet are going to be subject to dramatic kind of reversals in fortune. Sometimes things will be really great for one of the guys and really bad for the other, and then fortune's wheel will turn. Okay, so let's open up, again, page 73. Once upon a time, as ancient stories tell us, there was a duke who was named Theseus. He was lord and ruler of Athens, and such a conqueror in his day that there was no greater under the sun. He had won many a rich country by virtue of his wisdom and his knightly prowess. He conquered the whole realm of the Amazon women, which formerly was called Scythia, and took in marriage Queen Hippolyta, and brought her home with him to his country, with much glory and great pomp. And he brought as well her young sister Emily. And thus, with victory and the sound of music, I leave this noble duke riding to Athens, and with him all his force in arms. So, we start by meeting Theseus, and Theseus is one of our main characters, but he's not one of the two gentlemen that fall in love. He's actually the king, and he is the ruler of Athens, Greece. Okay? We start out with some bad fortune. And the bad fortune is there is a war between the Athenians, Theseus's people, and the Amazonians. Now, if you know anything about the Amazonians were a tribe of women called Amazons. Okay? They were beautiful women who were fierce, who were unbelievably highly skilled in war, and they were beautiful. Theseus and Queen Hippolyta, who is the leader of the Amazons, do battle. Okay? Luckily, or unluckily, depending on whose side you are on, Theseus wins. And with that, he decides that his treasure that he will have is taking the queen as his bride. So he marries Hippolyta, okay, who is queen of the Amazonians. So under bad fortune, number one, we have the war between the Athenians and the Amazonians. And then good fortune, the following, what comes out of war is marriage. Great news. So there's the marriage of Hippolyta and Theseus. And actually what Theseus does is he says, Hippolyta, you are going to be my wife. I will take you away from your country, which is probably not a great thing. And with that, I'm going to take your sister Emily. And Emily is going to be the love interest or the center of all of The Knight's Tale. Okay, so let's pick up again. And indeed, if it were not too long to listen to, I would have wanted to tell you fully the way in which the realm of the Amazons was won by Theseus and his knightly company, and of the singularly great battle between the Athenians and the Amazons, and how siege was laid to Hippolyta, the fair, bold queen of Scythia, and of the feast that there was at their wedding, and of the tempest at their homecoming. So remember, the knight is telling this tale to all the other pilgrims. And we know that the knight is a noble man. We know that he is chivalrous. He values war. He values honor. He values being true to yourself. And as a knight, he also values courtly love. So it's evident that his story will be of courtly love, and will be of heroic deeds. So what the knight is saying is, I could go into great detail about actually the war between the Amazonians and the Athenians, but I'm not going to. I'm going to skip over that. All you need to know is that Theseus won. He married the queen, who is Hippolyta, took the queen and her sister Emily back to Athens. But for now I must shun all that matter. I have, God knows, a broad field to till, and the oxen pulling my plough or wheat, and the rest of the tale is long enough. Besides, I don't want to hinder any in this company. Let each of our companions tell his tale in turn, and let us see now who is to win the supper. Where I left off, I'll begin again. What you have to realize about the knight is that he will sometimes say things like, I don't want to go into great detail, and I don't want to bore you to death with all these facts, and I don't want to take away from anyone else's story by being long-winded. But he doesn't realize that the irony in that is, as he's doing that, he's actually taking away the time and doing what he says he doesn't want to do. So he digresses often, and then he'll come back to the point. So here we go, back to the knight's point. The Duke of whom I speak, when he had come almost to the town in all his felicity and in his fullest glory, became conscious, as he cast his eye to one side, that in the highway there was kneeling a company of ladies, 2 by 2, each pair behind another, dressed in black. They made such an outcry and grieved so that no creature living in this world had heard such another lamentation. They would not leave off his shrieking until they had grasped his bridle reins. So the good fortune, the marriage of Hippolyta and Theseus, then leads to the bad fortune, which is on his road back, he comes into contact with 4 women who are kneeling on the side of the road, and they're crying for their dead husbands. What people are you, who are at my homecoming, thus disturb my celebration with your cries? Said Theseus. Have you such great envy of my honor that you thus complain and cry out? Or who has mistreated or offended you? Tell me if your wrong can be righted, and why you are thus clothed in black. So immediately Theseus kind of attacks the woman and says, why are you not happy? Why are you not happy with my marriage? Not realizing that they don't really care about his marriage. They're worrying about their dead husbands instead. He believes that their suffering is because of his good fortune. He says, why are you so upset that I'm having good luck? Being a little bit selfish, not realizing that maybe the world doesn't revolve around you. So one of the women will speak to him. The eldest lady of them all spoke after she had reeled faintly, looking like death, so that it was pitiable to see and hear her. My lord, to whom fortune has given victory and the life due a conqueror, your glory and honor do not grieve us at all. Rather, we beg for mercy and aid. Have mercy on our woe and our distress. By reason of your gentleness, let some drop of pity fall upon us wretched women. For indeed, my lord, there is not one of us all who has not been a duchess or a queen. We are now wretches, as is evident, thanks to fortune and her false wheel. Her who assures happiness to no condition of man. Indeed, my lord, to wait for your presence, we have been attending here in the temple of the goddess Clemency for a fortnight. Now help us, Lord, since it is in your power. So the women are saying, you know, this really doesn't have anything to do with you. We were once in your position, being we were once noble. But fortune's wheel has dealt us a bad hand. And we're waiting here for you because we're hoping that you are able to help us. She continues on. Wretch that I am, thus weeping and wailing, I was formerly the wife of King Capaneus, who died at Thebes. Cursed be the day. All of us who are dressed as you see and uttering all this lamentation, we all lost our husbands at that city while it was being besieged. And just recently, alas, old Creon, who is now lord of the city of Thebes and is full of wrath and evil, out of his spitefulness and tyranny has piled all the corpses in a heap in order to do ungentle deeds to the dead bodies of all of our husbands who have been slain. He will not allow them by any agreement either to be buried or to be burned, but for spite has dogs eat them. With that word and without further pause, the woman fell prostrate and cried out piteously, Have some mercy on us, wretched women, and let our sorrow sink into your hearts. So these women are grieving the loss of their husbands who were killed at the battle at Thebes. Creon, who is now lord of the Thebes and ruling Thebes, has dishonored all of these men and their families by actually piling up their bodies into a giant pile, not allowing for a proper burial. Remember, in Beowulf, that was a sign of disrespect if someone wasn't allowed a proper burial, and refusing to let them be buried or for the women to have the bodies back to do a proper funeral service. Instead, he piles them into a large mound, and you have this horrible image of wild dogs eating the dead bodies. It's pretty disgusting. The gentle Duke jumped down from his horse with pitying heart as he heard them speak. He thought that his heart would break when he saw how pitiable and dejected they were, who formerly were of such high estate. He took up each of them in his arms and comforted them with a good will, and swore, as he was a faithful knight, that he would perform what was in his power in order to avenge them upon the tyrant Creon, to such an extent that all the people of Greece would talk of how Creon was treated by Theseus as a villain who had fully deserved death. So Theseus, being kind of his heartstrings pulled by these poor women's struggle, jumps down off his horse, hugs each one of them, says, "It is my duty, it is my honor, and I will fight for your husband. I will go to Thebes, I will fight Creon, and thus get your husband's bodies back." And immediately, without further delay, he displayed his banner and rode forth towards Thebes with all his army. He would not walk or ride any nearer to Athens, nor would he rest for half a day, but lodged that night further along on his route. He sent Queen Hippolyta and Emily, her fair young sister, to stay in the city of Athens, and he rode off. There is no more to say. So immediately Theseus gets back on his horse. He doesn't take a step closer to Athens. He takes himself and his entire army and heads to Thebes to try and defeat Creon. He obviously is worried about his wife and his sister-in-law. He sends them to Athens, and then he is going to march on Thebes and thus overthrow Creon. The red statue of Mars with spear and shield so gleamed in Theseus's broad white banner that all the fields round about glistened. Besides his banner was borne his pennon of richest cloth of gold, on which was embroidered an image of the Minotaur, which he had slain in Crete. Thus rode this Duke and Conqueror, with the flower of knighthood in his host, until he came to Thebes, and alighted down in splendor in a field where he intended to wage battle. But to make a long story short, he fought with Creon, king of Thebes, and slew him in manly and knightly fashion, in open battle, and put Creon's people to flight. Thereafter he won the city by assault, and tore down wall and beam and rafter. To the ladies he returned their slain husbands' bones, so that the funeral rites might be celebrated in the way that was then the custom. So, next part of our notes, good fortune, Theseus defeats Creon. He then returns the bodies to the wives for a proper burial. All is restored. Theseus is victorious. He is the epitome of a knight. Obviously, our knight is telling this tale because he believes that Theseus is all that he should be as a knight. He values his chivalry, his dedication to his people, his dedication to the code of knighthood, as well as his dedication to what he believes is right. But it would take all too long to describe the great clamor and lamentation that the ladies made at the burning of the bodies, and the great honor that the noble conqueror Theseus paid to the ladies when they departed from him. To narrate briefly is my intent. Again, that's another kind of point of his transgression. He says it would take too long to talk about all this stuff, but then he talks about all of it, only meaning that the burial itself was properly done, and the ladies were able to mourn their husbands. When this valiant Duke Theseus had killed Creon and thus won Thebes, he took his rest all night upon the same field, and dealt with all the country as he wished. Okay, so we're going to stop part 1 there. We've just finished up line 146. Make sure you have the notes for 1, 2, 3, and 4, good versus bad fortune.